here tonight with myself, Tony, and of course my partner from the East Coast, Mike. How are you, Mike?
Hey, we're doing good.
Like the hat.
You
Love the
like
hat.
that,
Love the
huh?
hat.
I was going to wear my blue one, but I figured I'd get too many nice compliments on it. It says "Make America a S-hole."
Well,
I'm going to wear that to the voting booth when I go
well,
in my
you know,
state.
it does. To be honest, it wouldn't even matter what you wear. People are gonna say whatever they're gonna say. You know what? You know that.
Oh yeah, well
I mean,
being in this blue state is just the opposite of this. So I figured they'd look at it and go, "Oh, well, I had to wear my blue one because my red one triggers you."
I'm so over the trigger word. Um, always being an
Yeah.
issue, right? You triggered
Did,
me because we don't agree. You know,
did you
whatever
watch Fannie
happened.
Willis today?
Oh, I didn't watch it, but I read something about her testimony, and it got I guess a little heated with
Oh, she was.
defense
Yeah,
attorneys.
I watched this. She was an idiot. I mean, if I had her as a DA, I'd wait for her outside and take her behind the barn.
You know, it's really sad that everything has become personalized, right?
Oh
We
yeah,
never think about like the attacks on Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It's all personal. It's nothing to do with his politics. They might say it is, but it has nothing to do with that. It's all
no,
personal, right? They don't like you. They're gonna attack you. They're gonna make shit up. They're gonna say whatever they want to say. Um, and the sad part is that people kind of buy into the nonsense. And
they
you would
do.
think by now you would take a step back and say, "Well, wait a minute, right?" Um, but some do. And I want to tell you, I've had a few phone calls, people that asking me questions about my campaign from Democrats, right? Uh, and a lot of them have been positive, which is really kind of weird for me, right? It's been
Yeah,
really positive, um, especially when I explain my positions on certain issues, right? And I always tell them, look, I don't want to lie to you because I can't solve everything, right? We have to prioritize what we think is important in
right.
our district. That's what's important, right? Whatever's important here, we work on that. Whatever's happening in another district, it might not be the same thing that we need. So I kind of keep the campaign focused on that, on what's going on in our district and what I think we need in our area.
Yeah, I
Because it
mean
gets lost
and
when you start talking about.
it's crazy out here because I'm seeing things where they're going, oh, most of the legislature is Democrats. So now they want to put an 11% tax on firearms and ammunition. So I think tomorrow I have to go out and buy more ammunition before they get it through. And I mean, it's nonsense stuff because it doesn't affect the bad guys. It affects the law abiding people, you know.
Well, you got people like Newsom wanting to pass a national bill for gun control, right? But what they don't really explain to people is that the bad guys can get guns whenever they want, right?
Exactly.
They know where to go. They don't have to sign a document to get bullets. They don't have to sign a document to get guns. And those guns that are killing people, most of them, I'm going to assume that they're guns that were either stolen or
Right.
guns that there's no serial number on them or they got from some hood in the street, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
drugs, right? If you really want drugs, you know where to find them. Right?
Yeah.
If you really
But
want
they're
a weapon, you know where to go get a weapon.
but now they're not even good drugs because I mean look at the guys in or was it Kansas City who were found like frozen in their backyard. The
Yeah.
autopsy came out and the toxicology came back. They were smoking weed and they had fentanyl in their system. And there might have been one other drug, but a lot of times now they're taking the fentanyl, putting it on the weed. You're smoking that, boop, you're dead. So
People, you would think, like, even if I'm a drug addict, I would want to make sure that I don't die, right?
Oh yeah,
I mean, just common sense, right? I mean, why would you buy something not knowing the person you're buying it from if you're going to buy it? I mean, it's just, I'm going to give you an example. There was a shooting here um, in my police division, not my city. And I'm not going to name the city, but uh, it was a drive-by shooting, like back in the old days, right? Uh,
oh
Gangs involved. They were all kids that were involved in it. The kid that was murdered, the four kids they arrested, they were all kids. And when I mean kids, I mean under 17, right?
oh definitely
Freaking kids. Um, how do they get guns, right? Of course, they don't get them legally, right? They can't, right?
right.
They get them illegally, right? Yeah, maybe an adult bought it for them, but those are the people we need to worry about, right? Those people that want to buy guns outside the normal channels of buying guns, right? Because those are the ones that are committing the crimes, right? And I know I hear it, especially in LA County. You know, underprivileged, you live in a gang infested neighborhood, blah blah blah. You know what? There's nothing wrong with good old fashioned parenting. No, you know what? You're
Right,
not going to get that tattoo on your hand to signify gang. No, you're not going
right.
to do that. You're not going to dress that way. No, you're my child. You're going to dress appropriate. You're going to go to school. You're going to learn a skill.
You can
Um,
have a belt so you can pull your pants up.
yeah, yeah. Again, it goes back to the sad part that a kid can go to his school or even call the police and say, "My mom spanked me," and the police are going to show up.
Oh, I used to have that, and I just laughed at the kid. They said, "Well, my parents said I couldn't do this, and I got whacked." Well, guess what? You, young man, should have listened to your mother because that's called discipline. It's not abuse. Have a nice day.
Yeah, I wish more cops were like that because I think nowadays they're afraid to not do something. Um, we got school officials, political people in office saying that it's okay for a child to take testosterone, to change their sex, and if your parents don't agree, we can take you away from your parents, and you can be you can become part of the state. What kind of nonsense is that? I mean,
Oh yeah,
when you think about it, when you sit back and go, how did we get here? Right?
yep,
A kid, we don't allow them to buy cigarettes and smoke. We don't allow them to drink. But if they want to mutilate themselves, okay, you have a right to do that, child. And by the
yeah.
way, you don't have to tell your parents because if your parents don't agree, then we'll take over. You can come live with the state of California, right?
And now what they're doing out here is if you get taken away and you get put in a foster home, when you start to come out of the foster home, they're giving you $800 a month, and it's a program they call Thrive to help you out. I'm going $800 on? No, it's called Get a Goddamn Job. You know,
We keep making excuses for
yeah,
things that we don't need to make excuses for.
for common
You
sense things.
and you know, and I know some people call whatever the progressive agenda common sense, but I think we need to prioritize what's happening, right? You can't attack all the issues. There's just no way, right? Because you're not going to solve anything. But you can attack the important issues. You can prioritize like you and I do at home, right?
Right,
Hey, we can't go out to a fancy restaurant this weekend, honey, because this bill came in, that bill came in. So maybe next time we can go. Right.
right,
We can prioritize. I don't understand. Well, I do understand why they don't prioritize because it's not their money, right? That's the reality of it, right? It's
yep.
taxpayer money and they don't care how they spend it. So um, it's just amazing to me that whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, whatever your party line is, common sense should always prevail.
It
It should
should.
always prevail. It shouldn't be because my party wants me to do this and my party it should be common sense. What is it? What is in my best interest? Who should I vote for? What kind of policies is this person going to bring to the table? Right. And if they don't bring what they say they're going to bring, then like in any organization, terminate their employment, vote for somebody else. Kind of
Exactly.
simple, right? If you don't like the job they're doing, thank you, Tony, for the 2 years, but you got to go because you didn't do anything, right?
Well, we got our former governor out here who thought he was going to run for president, got 1%, so he dropped out, and then he went over to the No Labels Party,
Ah,
and now he dropped out of the No Labels Party and said, "I'm going to run for Senate." So he wants to run for Senate, but he was such a rhino. It depends which way the wind would blow that he'd vote on things. And like I told people, I says, I'm people, not politics. Whatever benefits the people is what you need. I said it's not a game. So I said, there's a guy named David Trone, I guess, who's a congressman right now, and he's going to run for the Senate slot as opposed to Hogan, who's going to run for the Republican slot. Well, David Trone has proven himself to be a good businessman, a level-headed Democrat, and I said I got to go with him because I seen what the other guy does.
yeah.
You know,
It's you know obviously, as you know, I'm campaigning, and as I'm speaking to people, um, some of them actually listen and actually give it some thought. Whether they agree with me or not, totally, it's not even the point. I just want people to think about if they're happy with what's happening today, because I know I'm not. Right, I'm not happy. We got knucklehead Newsom now trying to pass a bill where for utilities, your rate's going to be based on your salary, right?
oh, the one that's nutty.
Right. So again, so if my neighbor uses the same amount of electricity I do, he or she's going to pay less, maybe because I make $1,000 more a month than they do, whatever the case is, right? Instead of being an equal thing, no, but we're placating to the low income people and the middle class. Say, hey, look, we're going to tax the rich. They're going to pay more, so you should be okay and be happy with it. I'm not okay with that, right? I just not.
Well, right, and a lot of the utilities, like our electric, my electric, I think was $600 last month, and I don't live in a mansion. And people don't realize you need the fossil fuels to generate the turbines to make the electricity. So it's all goes back to the energy issue. You got to have the fossil fuels for the energy, and then your rates will come back down.
Right, but again, they keep spreading their agenda, right? Um, I got one of my opponents um, actually has it on his website. He wants to continue the predecessor's agenda about green energy, right?
Uh,
Um, and and I'm thinking, okay, well, I mean, I get that at some point we need to do some kind of transition. I get all that, but before we transition, let's make sure that we have a system in place that makes the transition equally good for everybody and cost effective for everybody.
freedom of choice.
To switch over.
Yep.
I'm going to give you an example. So there is an airport, and it's not my city, but it's close by. It's called Pacoima, the city. It's called White Man Airport, right? And I went on a radio show last weekend and brought somebody from the airport to talk about it. And he mentioned something that was very disturbing. This airport has 5 different programs for kids. They teach kids how to fly planes, fix them. Civil Air Patrol is there. Um, Civil Air Patrol does all the search and rescues in
Right.
in the mountain areas here. So they want to close it down because well, they use noise pollution first. Then now they're using leaded fuel. Um, they want them to have planes that use unleaded fuel. Well, currently the engines don't work that way,
Right.
right? They don't. So it's just another way to close the airport because guess what they want to build there?
They want to build houses.
Right. Wait, they want to build affordable housing.
Yeah, which will be
Right?
about $500,000 or more.
I would say more because it's California. So,
Right. Well, that's
um,
the way ours is. They
so
put up new townhouses and they said, oh, 55 community, 55 and over community, affordable housing, $500,000 homes, and I'm or $500,000 homes, and I'm looking at it going, and who's going to do that?
especially with today's interest rates, right?
Oh yeah,
Right. So, but people get caught up on the nonsense of all the pollution and all this, right? And this particular area, it's a very industrial area. So there's a lot of industrial facilities there that obviously provide a lot more pollution than the airport, right?
sure,
There's a train that goes through there. Obviously, more pollution. It's not an electric train, right?
right.
But they only talk about the airport hurting the neighborhood. That's it. And they want to close it down.
And,
Um,
and I know from experience the Civil Air Patrol planes are small Cessnas. They're
right.
not like their jets because I was a lieutenant colonel in the Civil Air Patrol when I was a cadet, and I had all those programs.
Keep it in mind. Keep that in mind, right? Like we live Angeles Crest, which is a national forest, right? People go hiking up there. People go picnicking. People go, they stay overnight. Civil Air Patrol are the ones that go out
Yeah,
and look
what
for people that are lost, right? They're the first
exactly?
responders. Um, on top of that, we're giving these kids in this neighborhood, which is a low income neighborhood, the opportunity to have a skill. They have a high school group of kids building a plane by themselves, right? They're going to be able to fly that plane once the FAA certifies that plane. Think about how good those kids are going to feel knowing, hey, I built this, I flew this.
And the other good benefit is if you reach a certain rank, I think it's a warrant officer or captain. I can't remember which one right now. It's been so many years. When you graduate from their cadet program and you're like 18 and you decide, I think because it's an auxiliary of the Air Force,
Right.
I think I want to go in the Air Force. You automatically get two stripes when you go in.
Well, I'll even take it a step further, right? They've been flying planes, right?
Yep.
Civil Air Patrol, part of the Air Force.
Yep.
Those can be our future pilots for our fighter jets.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have to start from scratch. We got people that know the military, know the concept, and can fly a plane.
Yep. I got one of my guys that I was in the program with when he graduated out of it. He became a Marine Corps AV-8 Harrier combat pilot. So, yeah, you're exactly right.
It just they don't think about. And then there's different programs. Kids working with airplanes, they can get a job in avionics somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Making 70, $80,000 a year instead of 40 to $30,000 a year. So we forget about all the positives about it. I get the part that there's noisy, right? But the airport was there first,
Right.
right?
But
So
then they go ahead and they want to put developments in. They want to cut the trees down, which trees and grasses and vegetation needs carbon dioxide to grow. So now you're cutting off the oxygen supply. You're getting a less of an oxygen supply because these things you're cutting down, and you're saying, "Oh, it's for the Green New Deal." Green my ass.
there's no Green New Deal. That's all bullshit and nonsense.
Yeah, that's all AOC's bullshit.
I'm in construction, and I can tell you that um, a lot of the companies that have been contracted to do a lot of the work have gone bankrupt. Um, because it's just you got to have an infrastructure. You got to build the infrastructure first.
Yep.
You got to figure out where you're going to get the money from. You got to stop siphoning money from Paul to pay Peter because that's all they're doing, right?
Right.
Siphoning
Yep.
money from one group to give it to another, which makes no sense. It doesn't solve any issues at all, right? It doesn't solve
You
any. Like people get. I was at a meeting the other day at luncheon, and they were talking about California's Prop 47, and people are upset about it, right? And I just simply said, "Did you vote for it?" And one lady said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, why'd you vote for it?"
right.
Because you didn't read it. You read the title of the proposition. It had some BS title about, helping kids and blah, 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 which was nothing about it. It had to do with it's whatever you interpret that whoever the DA is, whatever he interprets that prop means to him. And in Gascon case, it means let everybody go, right?
Oh
That's
yeah,
what it means.
yeah. And I mean, I see our I read a thing today where if you own a pickup truck or SUV, when you get your tags renewed, they want to go up like $50 for them because oh, it's a heavier vehicle. Well, most of the people out here seem to be driving the SUVs now, and they say, oh, well, we want to add this for the road infrastructure program. It's bullshit. I mean, you haven't even started. You can't fill potholes on a street right now.
Don't let them fool you. That's what they did in California. We're going to raise the gas tax so we can fix the roads.
Well, that's
No roads are
exactly
fixed.
That's exactly what they're doing because I when I read it, it said something about well, California did this, and I'm going, we're not California, but we might as well be because we sure are getting treated like it.
Well, it's, you know, California has always been a great state to live in. I mean, it really is a great state to live in. We've allowed these politicians that people have elected to ruin us, to take us down a path that, if we keep walking hand in hand with them, there's no coming back. There's no
Yeah,
coming back from this. And if
well,
we don't come back now or fight now,
it's
where
going to
where
get
does it
worse.
end? Where does it
I
end?
mean, what's that old saying? Born free, taxed to death.
And here they're going after, they call it the death tax in California, right? So in California, if you leave your home to your kids, the property tax is what you paid on it. But what they're doing now is they want to reassess your home and charge your kids the extra money, right? Because that's all it is. And it
Right,
doesn't matter if it's a will, doesn't matter how you leave it. There's no more transfer. The point is they don't want you to transfer home to your kids without your kids having to pay a fee, a
right,
very high fee immediately. So if you have a home that it's $1 million and you're paying, 10 to 15%, um, that's a lot of money for a kid, right? I
oh
mean,
yeah,
truly is. So um, they're working on that for the November ballot. They also want to, instead of have a 2/3 vote to raise your taxes, California just wants to have a simple majority, um, because they can't get taxes approved because you're never going to get 2/3 votes of the population on that, right?
right,
Um, so there's things that they're trying to do in California to squeeze more money out of the middle class. Really, that's who gets hurt.
yep,
Because the rich have all the tax loopholes, right? I don't. They do. So that's constant barrage. We need more money. We need more money. What happened to the money that we gave you? Well, we don't know. There's no
yeah,
transparency. There's no. Uh, I had a reporter ask me on an interview about a week ago. He said, "So Tony, what are you going to do about the homeless problem?" And I said, "Well, to be honest with you, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have an audit. I would request an audit." I said, "I don't want to keep pouring in money into a system that I don't know where the money's going."
right.
And he thought I was crazy. He said, "Well, that's not a solution." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to give you a solution
Until
because
I
I
can
don't know
find
what
out
the real problem is."
exactly.
I said, "Somebody could be stealing money, right?" I said, "There's nonprofits that their people are making six figures. I don't know why they're making six figures. It's a nonprofit." I'm like, so before I allocate any money or say I'm going to fix it by building 20 million homes, I want to find out where all the money went to so I don't make that same mistake that we're making now.
Right.
And and he reacted like I was an idiot because I said I want to do an audit before I give money away.
Yeah,
And that's the mentality.
you got to find out what the problem is before you can implement a solution.
And what I told him was, I'm like, so let me break it down for you. So let's say your car, you're having trouble with your car, you take it to a mechanic and he doesn't fix it right. And he gives it back to you, but he said he fixed it and it's not fixed. Are you going to go back to that mechanic again to fix your car? Well, no.
He,
I said,
he
exactly. Why
right,
would I go? We have people entrenched in the homeless business. We need to find out who's really helping and who's not.
right.
I mean, that's just the way I think, right? I'm not going to keep doing the same thing over and over if it's not working. and it's not solving my problem, I'm like, there's a problem with who we're dealing with. So let's find some new people and
Right.
deal with them and
Exactly.
see people that want to help.
Yep.
You know, it's a lot of nonsense goes on
You
with some of
know,
the questioning. Again, depending on what party they belong to, which drives me nuts because common sense should be common sense. It shouldn't be. Doesn't matter what party you belong to. Common
well,
sense.
well, it's funny because right along the mid Atlantic coast, they wanted to build wind farms out in the ocean. Well, they started building some, and guess what we had popping up on the beaches? They were killing whales because of the sounds they were making.
Mm.
I sent a letter to PETA, never heard anything back, and PETA didn't give a crap. It wasn't in their backyard.
And PETA really doesn't care. It's all money driven.
It's money driven.
It's
Yep.
money driven, and I think at some point, the people in California, the people in the United States need to make a stand and say, no, enough is enough,
Right.
right? Why do I keep giving you more money and all you're doing is spending it nilly willy? Most of us don't do that at home,
Right.
right?
No.
If we
Right.
can't afford to do something, we just don't do it,
Right.
right? And what's wrong with and some people have been insulted by this comment by me is we need to take care of our own first, right? That's my
That's true.
theory, right? And I use myself as an example. I feed my family first. And then if I have food that I can share with my neighbor, then I'll share with my neighbor if he or she needs it, right? Kind of like the same theory with the world. We take care of our own first, and then whatever we have left over, we can help other people. Um,
Yeah.
but we
That's like that.
focus on us.
It's like that Senate bill they passed with no border security in it.
Yeah.
And I kind of heard that, and I went, Mitch McConnell, you gotta go, because if you're over there pushing the guys who may have a little respect for you, you're not worth the shit.
Well,
Because charity, my parents used to always say, charity starts at home.
yep,
And if you ain't doing this, because we got a southern problem and we got a northern border problem,
yep.
and they'll people fly into Canada, walk into the U.S. through the large loopholes in the north.
And you want to hear something really funny? And this is the part that amazes me. So if we vet people, we're racist, right?
Oh, of course.
We're racist and bigots. But in Canada, if you have a felony and you're not a Canadian citizen, you can't cross the border and go to Canada.
Yeah, unless you cut their border.
So I mean, if we do it, we're bad, but anybody else can do it, and it's okay. And again, going back to some people I know, they don't want a border. I say, why do you have a door in your house?
Right, or a fence around your yard.
Right? If you don't want a border, then you don't need a door. Well, no, I need a door. Well, why? Well, I don't want people to break into my house. So you don't mind people breaking into the country,
All
but you
right.
mind them breaking into your house. I'm like, that to me makes no sense at all. Right. Um, we need to have an immigration policy that makes sense, obviously, but we just can't allow anybody and everybody to come in. Right. There's got to be a vetting process, and we got to stick to the vetting process.
You know who actually got made a citizen this year? Who you've seen a lot of times?
Who?
Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, you did?
He became an American citizen. He said he spent his time going back and forth, to where his country was, and he finally applied and went through the process. And this week he got made a U.S. citizen. He did it the
Eh,
right way.
right. And we can do things to help people get there by not having attorneys involved, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
attorneys, we know they charge a huge fee to process documents. And if the person is a good person and we ran a background check and they're good, we should just say, okay, we're going to give you the permit to work first. Here's the process. Here's the book to study so you can become a
right.
citizen. Here's your path to citizenship. You don't have to pay the attorney hundreds and thousands of dollars. We're going to do it. We're going to help you walk you through that process. That would solve 90% of the problems.
Oh yeah. I mean, my mother was a Canadian citizen. She was born in Montreal, and she married my dad. And she came over. She did a study for the books, and take the citizenship test and became naturalized. And she did it the right. They did it the right way.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We just we always make excuses for people. Um, in what's the word they like to use? Equity, right? Equity,
Equity. Oh
right?
Lord.
Right. So it's not about equity. The Constitution guarantees everybody that. So it's not,
Right.
if somebody is mistreating a certain group of people, then go after that one person or that one organization.
Right.
But not every American is like that,
True.
right? We have some bad people. I get it, right? But not every American is a racist. Not every American is a bigot. Um,
Exactly.
we don't have to feel guilty about something that we didn't do, right?
Right.
I didn't do it, I wasn't even thought of. Right. I
And
didn't do anything. Now, if it's something I did, then of course come after me and talk to me. But something that I had no control over, I just think it's unfair to keep using the word equality and everything, right? It's kind of like in California, there's a movement to do away with algebra requirements, right? Because minorities apparently don't understand it or don't it's a
I'm with
strike
them.
against them, right? I mean, where does it end? Where does it end is my question. So now we're going to do away, like Oregon, do away with math, English, science, right? And you don't have to pass any of those classes to graduate. So you graduate with what kind of knowledge? Dumbass,
Dumbass. Zero.
right? And we want to do it with the algebra because in the name of equality, right, or equity, whatever you want to call it. Um, that makes no sense to me. I just teach it, teachers, teach it to the kids.
I had to ask my grandson a few weeks ago. He says, "I'm starting to learn geometry." I said, "Do you know when you can use geometry?" He said, "Not really." I said, "If you're shooting pool, it's part of geometry of how everything works." And he said, "I never knew that."
Because they
So
don't explain it. They don't explain it to kids. That's why I like the programs at the White Man Airport, because they're actually trying to help kids get a skill, right?
exactly.
Right. They did away with shop, right? There's no shopping classes anymore. So these kids are getting an actual skill. And if they're going to these programs, that means they enjoy going there. Right.
Right. And that's what happened to me. I was supposed to go to a, let's say, a school in the ghetto after I got out of junior high.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a choice between going to a vocational school or going there. And I said, well, let me take a vocation. So I took printing and drafting for the first year. And the next 2 years after that, I took printing. Well, when became a senior, they sent me out into the field and they arranged a shop to have me. I learned how their business worked. I learned how to print more, and I got a grade and got paid. So I had something to fall back on if anything ever, changed the way things are. And we had all kinds of classes: wood shop, auto mechanics, nursing, cosmetology, printing, drafting, and there was probably a few more in the metalworks. And they took it away, but now I understand they're going to do one in the north end of my county and the south end. And I'm like, never should have taken them away.
No, I think, you know, in the name of progress, I guess they want to get rid of everything that that is important, which makes no sense to me why they would do that. Um, you know, I think the family unit is really the most important part of our life, right?
Oh yeah.
And we do a horrible job of taking care of them. We'll take care of criminals, we'll take care of illegal immigrants, but we don't take care of families, right? We just don't. That's not the pillar of our society as far as the government is concerned, right?
No.
Because a family that sticks together is a dangerous family, right?
With Thrive.
Right, and not just that, it's a danger to the government because the more they separate us, the more control they have. Right?
Right.
That's the reality. Kind of like what they did with COVID, scared the crap out of everybody, right? Kind of like they're doing now with the new variant X. They don't even have a name for it, X, right? Um,
Well, they
that
got
is starting.
and they got a
Go ahead.
case up in Oregon now of bubonic plague that came from
Nice.
a cat.
I wonder how that happened, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know you know about the lab they found in California in the central part of the state, right?
I yes. Oh yes, the Chinese one.
Right. They so
Yes.
so we had this lab in the central part of the state, and yet nobody hears anything about it anymore, right? So we keep trusting the government, and I don't know why we trust the government as a society. To me, I'm not trusting you. You haven't done your job. You haven't said anything to me that changed my mind about what you're doing.
Correct.
Kind of like Adam Schiff. Every time he opens his mouth, I just don't understand how he's so far ahead in the polls when everybody knows that he does not give a crap about us. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's
Um,
him and Katie Porter and Steve Garvey.
Garvey.
And
And,
I'm
and,
hoping
and
people wake up.
I'm super impressed with Katie Porter because she's attacking Adam Schiff. So that's kind of impressive, right? Um,
I
that
mean,
she's actually doing that.
all you got to do is look at Adam Schiff and I mean, should I say Maryland citizen uh, Schiff, who lives in Potomac, Maryland, which is a ritzy neighborhood, and he claims as his primary residence. But I was like, after you hear that, you're going, oh, and we want you because why?
I I'm at a loss for words on why people in California keep voting for him. I just don't get it. As dumb as Barbara Lee sounds, I would probably vote for her before Adam Schiff
Oh, no doubt,
because
no doubt.
Adam Schiff is too connected. He's been proven to be a liar, and he might have done some things that were good in the beginning, but he has not come through for us. He has not.
Yeah, he
Uh,
screwed the pooch,
so and now we got Steve Garvey, and I think it'll end up being him and Steve Garvey in the runoff. Um,
and I hope
not
people wake up and put Steve Garvey in and boot Adam out.
Well, I'm hoping, with some of the conversations I've had with non-Republicans, they're kind of tired of some of the things that are going on, specifically tired of what's happening in the schools and our kids. That's a
Right,
big issue, right? But for example, in my race, I am the only one addressing parental rights, right? There's
right,
another one talking about he wants to provide more money for the schools, blah, blah, blah. That's all union crap. That's all public union stuff.
exactly.
If it was up to me, there would be no public unions in the schools, none at all.
And I think when the next president comes in, that they will get rid of Department of Education and take that $80 billion or whatever they give them it there and spread it out amongst all the states to have control their states with it.
No, I totally agree with you. The Department of Education shouldn't even exist the way it exists now.
Yeah, I
So,
think that came in actually under Reagan, the Department of Education,
or
and it's
did.
just it's time to go. You got to go.
Well, I mean, even in California, the way people are chosen is ridiculous to me, right? They're appointed by the governor. Come on,
Right.
give me a break. If you're going to be part of the education board, the state education board, you better be an elected official or better be parents being nominated for those positions
Oh yeah, yeah, it makes sense.
that have kids going to public schools, not private schools, public schools.
Right.
Right.
I wouldn't run for a school board seat. I got no kids. I've got no experience as far as what goes on in the schools. I'd back out, but I would vote for a parent or somebody that has some common sense to do it.
And we have a couple of parents running for Glendale Unified School System here. Um, Two good people. Um, One of them is running against a guy that was fired from Beverly Hills for skimming money from unions, right? So he moved to Glendale to run for school board in Glendale, right? How is he even allowed to run? Uh,
Yeah,
right? Is the question to me. But it happens, right? It happens more than we think. Right? We never would have known about Beverly Hills if Beverly Hills didn't print it in a paper because they knew he was running for office in Glendale, right?
oh yeah, thank God for that.
So it all came out. I think was uh, about 8 hours before his debate, and of course it was brought up on the debate. Um, but to me, if you don't have the best interest in mind of people, you're never going to make the right decisions. If you don't
Right,
ask people what's happening in your area and you're just making assumptions, you're never going to be able to deal with anything, right?
right.
You know, don't pass a bill about green energy if my problem in my district is
Crime,
trash, right?
right,
Or crime. Let's focus on the district you were selected for. What's the most important thing to those people? If you go to Glendale, it's parental rights in the school system, right? If you go to San Fernando Valley, it's the same thing. If you go to LAUSD, you get a mix of parental issues and violence in the schools because there's very little school police anymore.
right.
They took that money away because of BLM, right? They didn't want to hear from BLM, so they took the money away. So, you got to understand what's happening in your area if you are at least a state guy. If you're a federal guy, you need to know, but I know most of the decisions you're making is for the nation, for the country. But if you're a state politician or local, every decision you make should be based on what your neighborhood or your district needs, not what you think they need, what the people say they need.
Yeah, what the law says. I mean, I got people on that neighbor next door program that are saying, "Hey, we got trash all over our roads. Take a picture of the car that throws it out and send it to the police." And I have to go back and say, "Okay, it's a misdemeanor. You don't know who the driver is. The police didn't see it committed in their presence. It ain't gonna fly."
Yeah.
And it's up to the state roads to come by and pick it up.
Well, because I think a lot of times people think, you know, it's like, I'll just use homelessness. Everybody, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to fix it? And everybody has their little theories how they're going to fix it. We're going to take money here. We're going to go do this. We're going to build more housing. No, you can't do anything until you know what the real issues are.
Right,
It's like jails. This is probably, more about this than I do, right? They want to close jails, right? Because it's bad for it doesn't really help people. But the reason the system doesn't work, at least in California, is because it has to be a tier system, in my opinion, right? So some people commit crimes because they're just criminals, right?
right.
Some people commit crimes because they have
The mental,
addictions and
yeah,
alcohol, and the other ones have mental issues, right?
right.
I'm pretty sure that in the prison in the jails in California, that's not even considered, right?
I
So
don't
to
think I
me,
don't, I don't think a lot of them consider that because most VARs are just you put them in and that's it. You never hear from them until they get back out and they come out from weightlifting and everything else and prisons are supposed to be tough. So when I was growing up as a kid, I would think, oh, you're going to jail. There's no computers. There's no cable TV. There's none of this extra crap.
right?
And now it's everybody's got everything. They can do
Yep,
whatever they want. It's like a home away from home.
smorgasbord.
Yeah, free food.
And I had this conversation with one of the candidates running for DA, and we agreed on this. We need jails. We need to build jails, right? They just have to, right?
Yeah,
But we need to do it with common sense, right? So if we get somebody that's committed a crime that has a mental issue, then we need to have part of the jail just for that,
or a separate prison
right?
or jail just for that.
Right, or something for yeah, right. And if it's
Yeah,
a drug addiction, then a certain, you're going to go through rehab in jail, right?
right.
We're going to we're going to clean you up, right? I know there's drugs in jails and I get all that, But if we don't do our due diligence to help them get over their issues, when they
Right.
get released, they're going to go right back to jail for the same thing, right?
Exactly.
And so you can't rehab people if you don't address the issues that they're having. Right?
Right.
You just can't. Now,
Yep.
the criminals, there's always going to be criminals, and I'm pretty sure there's a good chance that 50% of them are going to keep going back to jail. Just
And we got this thing out here now where when I got on the job, it was if you were 7 years old or younger, you couldn't be charged with a crime. Now I think they moved the age up to like 14, and you hear about all these younger kids doing carjackings, and so they don't get charged. And they're back on the street doing the same thing, and apparently, their parents ought to be buying plots and funeral home stuff because that's where they're going to end up at.
you keep condoning certain behaviors, and you're never going to be able to solve anything, right?
Right.
Kind of like a kid, right? You keep, it's okay, Johnny. I know you didn't mean to. And Johnny does it again. It's okay, Johnny. It's okay. At some point, Johnny's going to say, yeah, all they're going to do is say it's okay. He's going to keep doing it.
Right.
And it's going to escalate. It's going to escalate to something high. And, you were in law enforcement, you know that you have systems in place to protect officers, but also to enlighten them when they do something that wasn't correct, right?
Correct.
Whether
Yeah.
it was a board or some therapy or some counseling, you do that to correct, the negative side of it. And if we don't do that, people will continue down a path, right? There's
But
a
that
reason why not everybody makes it to boot camp, right? You
Yeah.
lose people in boot camp, right? There's a reason for that because they have to weed out the weak, and it's not for everybody, right?
Right.
Being
There's a lot
being
of lot of people that don't have the discipline.
right, just like
And
being a police officer, right? Not
Yep.
everybody is going to make it through the academy, right? Just not.
Right.
It's not for everybody, um, and we need to understand that and accept that. That maybe that person is not going to become a brain surgeon. Maybe can become a good mechanic, right? Doesn't
Exactly.
make them a bad person if they're not, because all parents want their kids to go to Harvard or Yale and get this. Not everybody wants to do that. That doesn't make you a good or bad person, but we don't help people to get there, right?
Right.
Uh,
I mean, that's why when I graduated high school, my father passed away before I graduated, and my mother said, "Look, you can go to college. What do you want to take? Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I don't. I've been in school for 12, 13 years." And I said, I'm tired. I don't want it anymore. And I'm in the workforce, work for the National Archives part time and an auto store full time. And I learned about cars and I talked to mechanics and, you learn stuff. And then when you decide where you're going to go, I was like, okay, well, I'm be a medic on this ambulance. And I did that, delivered babies at 17.
man,
And, it actually taking that class because I was interested in it. My grades shot up when I was in high school. I was in there doing that, and there's a lot of resources out there, but it's up to the students who want to do it and the parents who want to help their students
right.
to achieve those goals.
So, again, everything that you and I talk about always goes back to where it goes back to our homes, right?
Exactly.
Right? And kind of like our buddy Will always said to me, um, and he was right. I never realized it before he mentioned it. Is government begins at home, right?
Yep.
A form of government begins at the home, whether it's the discipline, whether it's the financial stuff, whether it's just keeping the family together and supporting each other. And I think that's where the leadership has failed us tremendously. Is that they don't think of us as families. They think of us as, you know, providers of their money so they can do whatever they want. So they can give money to Ukraine, give money to Iran, give money to whoever they want, right? And some of the same people,
And, and
attack us, right?
and at the younger age, you don't really think about that because your mindset isn't in that area. But as you get older, you realize, hey, I'm paying all this money, these thousands of dollars for the government, and they're putting my money in somebody else's pocket who don't even like me.
And
And
the crazy part is not just that, Mike, but think about this. If you disagree with somebody, the first thing they're going to say is you triggered them or you offended me or
oh,
you're a
you're
racist,
racist.
you're a
Yeah.
bigot. I mean, and it doesn't matter. And I'm not just saying that it doesn't matter what, whoever you disagree with, that's the first thing they're going to say, like the gender issue,
Oh,
right?
I love when they tell me, they say, "Well, you're a racist." And I said, "Oh," I said, "My wife is a white lady of color. My grandkids, all five of them, are children of color. How am I a racist?" And then they
Because you
can't say
disagreed,
anything. They
because you
got
disagreed with them.
yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I throw it back on them, and I said, "Well, maybe you're the racist," because I said when I went into a grocery store late one night, I was in line at the checkout, and there was a lady in front of me with her little son, and
Mhm.
her little son turned around, looked at me, and said, "Oh, hi." And mom said, "Don't talk to him." I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? I didn't do nothing to you or your family, but somewhere probably down her line, she had somebody that was incarcerated or did a screw up, but that wasn't me that did it, and it wasn't you that did it. It was their mindset."
It goes back to what we always talk about is people are being programmed to believe things that aren't really true. Now,
Exactly.
look, I'm a realist. There are some people that are racist out there. There just
There
is.
are.
You you
There are.
can't you can't deny that fact, and they're never going to go away. They're just not, right? But it goes back to what I always say: there's good people, there's bad people, there's good cops, bad cops, there's good soldiers, bad soldiers, right? There's good parents, there's bad parents. There's
And it's what you do with them.
right. It's you got to be able to get over all the nonsense and all the stuff they throw at you to make you angry so that you hate your neighbor, because that's the problem, right? If they keep us fighting, they win. They win, really. COVID was their test. It worked fabulous for them, right? They divided families, friends. They caused arguments between people because you're vaccinated or you're unvaccinated, kind of arguments. And it happened to almost all of us, right? That happened to almost all of us.
And I joke with the wife. We go down the road and you see somebody driving the car and they got a mask on. They're the only one in the car. I said, "Look, a liberal." Because I didn't wear a mask. I mean, I very rarely wore a mask. I didn't get COVID.
If they would have just approached it, hey, it's up to you. We recommend that you get the shot, but by making it mandatory that you couldn't go to certain restaurants, right? You couldn't go visit family members in a hospital, right? Um, that put a lot of people in a bad situation,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
Like, you know, can't visit somebody in a hospital because COVID. For God's sake, doctors wear masks all the time when they're dealing with people, right?
right,
Nurses wear masks all the time. They wear gloves when they deal with people. Uh,
right.
so they, if that was their initial test, it was a successful test because they were able to do it, right? I'm waiting for March to get here for many reasons. One is because I have a feeling that come March, that new X virus is going to explode throughout the country, right? And they're going to
Oh,
try to do the same thing again. And I
yep,
want the people to push back and say, no, we're not going
yep.
to do this, right? Because I think they're going to. I
Yeah,
think they're
yeah.
going
Of
to
course,
push it.
it's election time, and they'll set themselves up to do it again. They figure it worked before. Let's do it again. Oh, there's a new variant.
Yep.
And they'll say, "Oh, it's killed a lot of people." Well, a lot of people had underlying conditions like they do with the flu, and people die from the flu every year.
Hey, look, I have asthma and I'm still alive. Okay. So,
Yeah, well, I got a six-way heart bypass, diabetes, and epilepsy. I'm
you're the
still here.
best, bro.
And I'm alive. You
So,
know,
it just people need to be more aware of what's happening. And I know sometimes, my Republican side likes to bring up, you're going to hell, you're the devil. I don't think that's I don't think that's the way to resolve any issues and have people start thinking straight. I
Yeah,
think we should just focus on the issues of, well, what's important to you? Because I'm pretty sure that most people care about public safety. I'm just pretty sure
they
about
do. They do. Yeah, most of them do.
that, right?
They don't want to be victims of a crime.
I think most people care about their kids and what's happening in our school systems, right? We can all agree on those things, right? Um, we can agree the economy sucks, but right, can agree, right? You can't argue that point. We can
Speak,
agree that gas is ridiculous, right? At least in California, it is, right? So there's things that we can agree on as people that we can focus our energy in a positive way instead of focusing on things that we can't control.
and
You
it's
know,
it's funny how did you ever see the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin?
yes, I did.
It was actually pretty good. Well, he did like a follow up. He went into a Russian grocery store with his crew. They filled up a whole shopping cart full of food. And he said, in the United States, this would cost about $400. You know what it costs over there?
What?
$100.
Wow.
A whole shopping cart. He said, it just goes to show how corrupt the government is.
Well, they tax and fee us to death, right?
Yeah.
If they don't want to call it a tax, they call it a fee, right?
Their
Um,
service charge.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you start looking at service charge, like what the hell? What service? I'm
Right.
already paying you their salary. What service are they talking about? Kind of like cable TV, right? My wife brought it up tonight. She goes, "Did you know that if you have Direct TV, if you don't buy insurance from Direct TV, and there's a problem with whatever's going on, they charge you a fee to come to your house,
Huh.
right? And because we need a new remote, right? For our, but we have insurance because I already know how it works, right? So if somebody we're already paying $240 on cable a month, why are we paying $240? Is it just to get the channels we want? It has nothing to do with maintenance. If they have to come into your house, if the problem is outside, then it's okay. But if the problem is inside your home,
I got a remote for you.
well, just that's how ridiculous things are. That you have to pay for something you're already paying. Kind of like taxes, right? You get
Yeah.
taxed on your salary, then you get taxed going to the store,
Right.
then you get taxed on your income tax at the end of the year again,
Right.
right? So you're getting, and then if you get a bonus that's already been taxed, you're going to get taxed again when you fill out your taxes, right? So where does it end? I was when I was interviewing with the reporter, he says, "What's your perfect scenario for taxes?" And I said, "Well, for me, it would be just a flat tax.
Exactly. You know,
Everybody would get taxed the same,
if,
right?"
if you were a national representative, you could say we need a new tax system. We need a flat tax of 5% for everybody across the country. And I tell you what, that would make people so freaking happy because they'd have
Uh,
more everything in their pockets.
well,
And
and he asked me, he said, "How would that solve the problem?" I'm like, "Simple, because the rich," and I use Donald Trump, I said as an example, they have a lot of loopholes.
right,
So instead of paying 25%, they're going to pay maybe 2%, or maybe 1%. Where me, Tony Rodriguez, is always going to pay 33% no matter what, because I don't have any loopholes,
right, right.
right? And that's not fair to the American people. So if you make it a flat tax for everybody, now I know that'll piss off accountants, it'll piss off the IRS,
Piss
right?
off the politicians.
Right, because they're not going to get all this money. But
Yeah,
I simply don't care because it should be about the people, not the IRS, not the accountants, right? Because accountants make a lot of money on taxes, right? They do
right.
all the paperwork. Kind of like lawyers with immigration, they make all the money.
Yep.
There's some things that we need to manage um, in our country, in our state, in our cities, right? To make life better for people, because that should
That's
be the
right.
goal, right? Life should be better for you and I.
Right.
It,
And
it
we
shouldn't
got
be
the
harder.
Rudy says that's why we need Tony in Congress. You're right, Rudy. And if you can get out there and help him push that word out, he'd be appreciative of it.
we need to just do a better job of getting the message out to people in a way that they'll accept the message, not
Right.
attacking people. Because I think when you start attacking people for their beliefs, they just shut down. I know I do,
They do.
right?
Yeah.
Right. If you start bad mouthing the military to me, I'm gonna shut down. I'm not listening to you. I don't
Sure.
care. I don't care what
Sure.
evidence you have. It doesn't matter to me. If you badmouth people because of the color of their skin or because the job they have, I don't want to talk to you.
And
Right.
I ran into a neighbor who moved in, has the same address numbers as I do, but they live in a court and I live on a drive.
Right.
And I went over to talk to him and I said, "Look, I get packages for you at my house, and I know they'll send some packages of mine to your house. Can I get your phone number?" And so we exchanged phone numbers. And sure enough, the lady called me yesterday and said, "Hey, did you order water?" I said, "Let me check my wife." "Yeah, we ordered water." She said, "I'll bring him right over." And I said, "Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm glad we got to know each other." And that, I mean, you got to develop that community within your community.
Right.
Because if you
And I
don't,
think that's what we're missing. We're just not friendly towards each other, and we're
oh,
worried about things that we disagree on versus things that we can agree on.
right.
Right.
You
And
find that
that's
common goal area, that middle line, and I used to see a police car drive up to her house all the time, and I wondered, where does this guy live? Well, come to find out, it's this lady's son. And I said, well, tell him to come by. You see my tags on my car; they're police tags on my car. Tell him to stop in anytime he wants. We'll talk. We'll have a little chit chat. But and when people move in the neighborhood, I go over and greet them, say hi, I'm so and so. I live right around the corner here. I'm retired. I kind of keep my front door open all the time so I can see what's going on. And it's nice to meet you, Miss Judy, or whatever their name is. They tell me, and I
right.
tell them who I am. And we don't see that anymore.
No, and there's nothing wrong with going back to that. And I think part of it is anybody that wants to help, whether it's running for office or helping in the neighborhood, get over what we don't agree on and let's focus on what we can agree on, what's important, right?
We all have a common ground,
Yep,
and we gotta find what it is, and it can be on multiple issues. And once we find that common ground, you can develop a lot. I
yep,
mean, you can bring people the way you're thinking, or they can come the other way.
yep,
But the
absolutely.
main thing is if you're speaking to people and you're running for office, you have to do one of two things. You got to know what you're talking about, and you got to listen.
Yep,
And a lot of the politicians we got in there now don't listen.
right. I agree. Well, Mikey, time has definitely flown tonight.
Yeah,
Um,
and thanks, Bob, for chiming in there too. Tony's going to have you. We want to have you with this team. So get a hold of them and see if you can help them out.
and Mikey, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. You know, you. I've never seen you in person, but I feel like we're family at this point.
We
Um,
are.
I appreciate I appreciate our conversations, not just on the show, but on the personal side too. Um, I'm looking forward to someday meeting you. Hopefully, when I win this election in November, we can have
In
a big old party.
Sacramento.
Yeah, big old party. Everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. You can find out a little bit about me on my website, Tony, the number 4, California.us. I'm all over social media. Just type in Tony Rodriguez and you'll find me. Um, I have my personal phone listed on my website. Feel free to call me. I'll talk to anybody, good, bad, or indifferent. We don't have to agree, but we can talk. And I'm a firm believer in conversation to get everything resolved. So thank you for joining us tonight.
You got it,
Looking forward to
guys.
next week, everybody. Thank you for joining the Tony Rodriguez Show on the Next Gen USA.
You got
Good
it.
night,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.